Hi and welcome to LGBT Live this Monday evening with myself, Kieran Fox, manager of Youth Work Ireland, Cavan Monaghan, and...
Hi guys, I'm Cassandra. I'm a detached youth worker with Youth Work Ireland, Cavan Monaghan.
And I'm Barry. I'm the LGBT youth development worker for Cavan and Monaghan.
So, guys, historic week in a lot of ways. Obviously, the pride flag is flying behind me, but it's flying in a lot of other places as well this week. Barry, do you want to fill us in a little bit on what's been happening?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I was just sharing to my page that we were here, so you were making me concentrate too much. Yeah, we finally have the pride flag flying at council buildings across Cavan and Monaghan, which is quite an amazing achievement, I think. We put out a call to councillors across the two counties and TDs to see if we could make this happen, just so young people within the two counties feel represented, feel valued and feel part of the community. So as of just an hour ago, I know you were with me, Kieran, whenever we were over in Cavan at the courthouse there. Councillor Aidan Fitzpatrick, who's the last Cahirlock of Cavan County Council at the moment, raised the pride flag for the week. And yeah, it's happened in Monaghan town there at the County Council building last week, in Carrickmacross this morning, in Clones, I think was last Friday or Saturday as well. The pride flag went up, and it is going up, virtual flags and physical flags around the two counties. So yeah, it's history. It's the first time it's ever been done at a civic building in the two counties, which for Pride Week, which is it's amazing for me as a member of the LGBT community. I'm absolutely, you can see I'm ecstatic. I'm tired. I've been chasing flags all week, going from one photo up to another. But yeah, great to have it.
No, and look, it's something I know we talked about on this way back, and it's fantastic. And, a lot of hard work by Cavan and Rainbow Youth has made that happen, and obviously the officials in the council who have made it happen as well. But it is so long overdue and so wonderful to see. Cassandra, when we were in Cavan, myself and Barry had a conversation as we looked up at the flag about how all people can stand under that flag. You know, it's not just LGBT people, but all people should feel that they are able to belong under that flag, because it allows people to be individuals. And so it's something that we can all look up to and feel so happy and so proud to see flying over those council buildings. Am I right or am I wrong?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, every single one of us is a part of society. It's a part of the world. And like, you know, maybe we shouldn't need a flag, or, you know, or we should belong no matter what, you know, everybody should. But the flag, you know, because there's been such a fight for rights, you know, basic human rights, the flag just shows that you belong, you know, everybody belongs. And, you know, certainly LGBT young people and everybody in that community. So yeah, absolutely, it should be viewed as being a symbol of equality for everybody. Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
As a man from Northern Ireland, you know, it's very nice to find a flag we can all stand under. But look, I think this is the flag that we can all look to with a great amount of pride. And you know, it's fantastic that it's there. And as I said, long overdue, but just brilliant to be there now. But it's a pride flag, and this is Pride Week, Pride Month. So what I'm really interested to find out is pride means, you know, so many things. It's not an exclusive word, I suppose, but it's certainly a word that, at least during this month, we associate with the LGBT community. But Barry, what does pride mean to you? And Barry, if you want to unmute your mic, I would really love to hear what pride means to you this time.
I do want to unmute my mic. Thank you very much. It had to happen. It had to happen again this week because I'm a numpty. Pride means a lot of things. Pride this year means pride. It means a lot more to me this year than it ever has, I suppose. And I suppose it comes down to it comes down to your own relationship with your identity, your sexuality, and who you identify as. And for me personally, like it's taken me a long time to get to this place where I'm confident and comfortable to speak openly. Like I came out when I was 18. There's no question about that. But it still can be a tough struggle. So for me this year, what pride is for me is feeling connected with my community. It's feeling a part and respected within society. As a LGBT development worker, it means empowerment. It means giving people strength. It means so many things. But yeah, so pride doesn't mean just one thing for me. And a lot of times people hear the term pride and hear, you know, LGBT pride or gay pride, and they're just thinking of the parades and everything else that's going on. But pride's a lot more than that. Pride is about, as Cassandra was saying, it's about human rights. It's about equality. It's about diversity. It's about people having the right to live their life as they see fit. And unfortunately, like across the world, there's far too many people that can't fly that flag. And that's another reason why it's important for us to fly it here at home in Ireland, because we have the freedom to do that. Whereas there's parts of Europe that are backtracking, that are reversing legislation that was so successful. And across Africa, across parts of America, people cannot be themselves. So what is pride? Pride is human rights. That's what it is.
And Cassandra, we said, you know, we've used the word individuality. Barry used the word diversity. So, like, one thing that's really coming across through all of this is how all of these words, and you know, can mean different things to different people. So, the very same question to you: what does pride actually mean to you? And while you're answering, I'm going to go and plug in my laptop, which I forgot to do. And I've no doubt Barry will be delighted after forgetting to mute his mic that I've made a mistake. What does pride mean to you, Cassandra?
Well, definitely everything that Barry has mentioned, but absolutely, you know, when I hear the word pride, or when I say the word pride, I mean belong, you know, and that word alone, you know, the meaning of that word alone means so much, you know, just to belong where you are and feel comfortable and safe, and like you're, you know, like you belong, and that you are safe, and that you are welcomed, and that you are a part of this society. You know, pride is definitely, for me, it means belong, you know, and that to me, you know, I'm part of the LGBT community myself, and you know, I feel like it's been a struggle to belong, you know, and in many different ways, like throughout my life. But definitely, I feel when I hear the word pride, and you know, yeah, it means that we belong, you know, and that's huge. That's important, you know.
And see what Cassandra's up to saying there. Sorry to cut across, but the struggle. I can relate to what Cassandra's talking about there, because as a member of the LGBT community, one of the hardest things you ever come to terms with is who you are within yourself before you open your mouth to anybody, before you can look for support. That's one of the, it's an extremely difficult path. It's an extremely difficult journey to go, and you're doing it on your own because you're not strong enough. Well, I'm not saying not everybody's the same, but that struggle, and that's why we need to fly flags as well, to let them young people who haven't figured out who they are yet, let them know that when they do, that we're here and we'll embrace them no matter what. So that's the important part, is acknowledging the struggle, because there is still a struggle going on, regardless of how far we have as society moved on. Everybody still has their own battles to fight within themselves.
And it's interesting, you know, you talk about that struggle, and you talk about being able to identify with Cassandra. And for me, as a straight male, you know, for me, that's completely outside my periphery of what I had to deal with. Now, yeah, I had to deal with other things, but I didn't have to deal with that. I didn't have to deal with the fact that who I loved didn't necessarily conform to what people expected. And, you know, I think that's where my straight voice in this adds something, is straight people. It's so far outside our sphere of understanding, and so far outside what we go through in terms of growing up. I think that it's so important to actually stop and think about how fundamental that struggle is in terms of accepting yourself and being comfortable with yourself and coming to terms with your sexual identity or all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, for me, I can't necessarily understand. I can empathize with it, and I can sort of say, look, I get where you're coming from. I've never been there, but I think I understand what you're telling me. But that's so important. I think it's so important that that voice is heard as well, that we stop and we understand that, you know, that there has been a struggle for a lot of people to come to terms with that. So I think that is really important and really poignant as well. And something else you talked about there, Barry, in terms of that flag being there for all to see. I know that we have had the conversation about, is the flag tokenistic? Does it actually mean something real to have that flag flying over these council buildings? Or is it tokenistic? But you're saying, no, it's not tokenistic. It is a beacon, are you? Yes!
Done it again.
You certainly did.
Here's me trying to be considerate, muting my mic, and then I forget. Yeah, it is a beacon. Well, I hope it's a beacon. The reason I called out to our councils to do this, to the ETB, to all the other services, TUSLA, HSE, like everybody's coming on board. It's not just a council thing as well, and we need to acknowledge that. Like the first people to come back to us to say that they would fly the flag was Cavan and ETB. They were straight in, not a problem. So we do need to acknowledge that it isn't just the councils doing this. But the reason we put that call out is that it can be a beacon for the young people, that they can look at these civic buildings and go, yeah, I belong. And it's come back to what Sandra said. So if it is, even if it only makes one young person's life better, it's well worth having flying.
Oh, absolutely. Cassandra, would you agree? Do you feel that it's more than a token? Is it a beacon? And is it a starting point, or are we there?
You know, I'll go back to the whole belonging thing, because, you know, when you wake up in the morning and that weight is sitting on your chest, you know, and it all comes down to being worried about who you are, and, you know, like that's the first thing and the last thing that you think of every day. That's not okay, you know. And I think that the flag is just one more step, a huge step, but one more step towards us feeling like we don't have to be like, we don't have to feel like that. We wake up and we're like everybody else, you know. Like essentially it's who you are, you know, and you should never have to worry about that ever. So I think the flag is, like I said, it's, yeah, as Barry said, if one young person can feel like they belong in this society, then, you know, that's it.
And look, I think it transcends LGBT when we say that, you know, we all want young people to feel that they belong. Last year, we rewrote the motto of Youth Work Ireland to be young, be you, belong. And like belong, a young person feeling that they belong is so fundamentally important, so fundamentally critical to development, to education, all of those things. So my God, if that flag means that one young person feels that they belong, fly it from every building in the country.
Listen, it's not just young people either, to be quite honest. I have so many friends that have seen that have gone to have their photograph taken with it, that are all like all feeling now finally that they're part of their own community. So yeah, in my role, it's obviously youth orientated, but as a member of the LGBT community as well, it's universal. Anybody of any age can now actually look at that flag as they drive past. So yeah, extremely
powerful. Like, so
I'm getting messages here just laughing at me muting my mic as well, which it's never going to happen again. I don't care what feedback happens.
Good. I feel like muting myself. No, I'm glad you're getting messages. Hopefully it'll teach you. But that's great. Right. Okay. Now we've got some stuff that's been happening, sort of conversations that have been happening online that we've been privy to amongst young people. And one of the questions that's coming up from young people, one of the topics that they're talking about is something I'm now going to put to you, where they ask, what would you say if you could give advice to your younger self? So I'm going to come to you first, Cassandra, if that's all right. You know, at your ripe old age there, what would you say if you could give advice to your, well, it has to be slightly younger self?
Well, definitely number one would be slow down. Stop being in such a hurry to grow up, because, you know, you look back, I am only 27, but you look back and you think, what was I doing? Like, be young, enjoy it. I say it to my nieces and nephews, or my nephews and my sisters and stuff, you know, slow down, just enjoy it, you know, enjoy it. And also, just as easy as it might sound and as cliche, you know, don't be so hard on yourself. Just be, you know, enjoy every day as much as you can, and don't be so hard on yourself. Also, try not to worry about what other people think of you, because it holds a lot of people back. It definitely held me back from doing things. And you know, that fire that's inside you that tells you what you want to be it and do it. Just do it. You know, it's your life. You only get one shot. So that would be what I would tell myself.
Excellent. No trademark infringement intended with that last one there. Just do it. But really interestingly, all three things are things that I can completely identify with. Of course, slow down, don't be so hard on yourself, and dream big and go for it. Barry, what would you say to you? Now, obviously, myself and Cassandra, we are very young still, but for yourself there, what would you say to your younger self? Unmute.
To learn how to use the bloody mute button. My God, I nearly did it again. Sorry. What would I say to my younger self? Don't be afraid to ask for help. That's probably one of the most important things. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You can't do everything on your own, so don't be afraid to ask for help. And to be honest, another one, and it's going to sound a wee bit, you know, we all have self-doubt. Everybody questions everything that they do on a daily basis, just as Cassandra was saying. You are good enough. You can do it. You just maybe just need to ask for help. Maybe that's all you need to help you get along there. But you are good enough, and love yourself. That's actually probably one of the most important things. You need to love yourself, because you'll only be able to start living your life to its fullest whenever you are happy and content within yourself and who you are. And take it from an old man who's older than 27, older than 37, that really is one of the things that you need to do for life to start moving on the way you want it to move. So trust in yourself, love yourself, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Do you want to tack another decade on to that?
No, not yet.
No. Look, there's something that's really obvious. I'm writing these down as you're saying them. Something that's so apparent to me there is these are applicable to every young person. It's not advice for just LGBT young people. Straight young people, all young people maybe, and not just young people, by the way, have to come to terms with these things, have to learn these things. I'm still learning a lot of them, you know, and love yourself is so important. You're right, it's fundamental, but it's not necessarily that easy for a lot of people. It's quite a difficult and long process that takes a lot of work for people. But, you know, it is so important to go on that journey and to learn to love yourself. Because ultimately that's where you end up happiest, isn't it, Cassandra?
Yeah. And I mean, it's definitely not something you're going to, you know, do overnight. And you know what, I think every single person on the planet struggles with that. You know, I don't think there's anybody who really doesn't. But take it day by day. And as Barry was saying earlier, like, believe in yourself. Like, it sounds so easy to say, and I don't mean it like that, but work on it. Give yourself the time, you know, put the time into yourself and take it day by day. Like, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. Plus the fact that you only have one you know, you're stuck with you for the rest of your life. You're going to have to, you know, you learn to love yourself. The quicker you do that, the easier it gets. I really believe that. And the older you get, yeah, it definitely makes it easier. But just give yourself the time. Put the time in. It's worth it.
I see Barry shaking his head at you there, probably because he would have spoken out, could he, had his mic muted. So he had
no, I was letting her speak. I was just thinking now the two of you are having a go. Maybe I've been old.
That's correct. Yeah, we are.
Never Barry.
But it's not like you don't ask for it. So, okay, just I've got a question I want to finish up with. Well, actually, probably two questions, but I'll start with one. Just on this Pride Week, and when we're looking at all things LGBT and all that's great about that LGBT community, Barry, I'm going to come to you first on this. Who, if you look back and you look at your life, it could be a personal thing or it could be a pop culture figure, but who has been an LGBT mentor for you?
I don't know. Like we spoke about this last week as well, to a certain extent. The likes of Ellen DeGeneres, her coming out episode back in the late 90s, I think it was. That was a monumental moment in my life, because it sort of, that was a public figure who's standing out and actually standing up and saying, I'm gay. Now, everything that happened to her afterwards, like she lost her career for about 10 years. Everything fell apart for her because she stood out and was who she was. You have the likes of Graham Norton, who's an Irishman, obviously, in the UK all the time. There are people in my private life like that I know personally as well, who I'm not going to name here, but that I do remember seeing them and knowing that there was something different. And I mean this here as a younger person, not having the language around LGBT or what it is to be gay or a member of the LGBT community. I do remember these people, and they were so content in themselves, outwardly anyway. God knows they were probably struggling like every other LGBT person does to be accepted. So I can't think of any particular, well, I can think of many. Freddie Mercury, I mean, God almighty, what a man. Tom Hanks as well. I remember him for doing the movie Philadelphia. I mean, I know he's not an LGBT person, but that movie was a massive part of LGBT pop culture. So yeah, no, I can't think of anybody.
I want to go in on that Tom Hanks thing you just said. Tom Hanks, not a member of the LGBT community, but portrayed that character in Philadelphia so movingly and so stunningly that, you know, I think that is fair, because the flip side of that, I would say, is I, as a straight man, have LGBT mentors, people who have helped me understand what LGBT means and what the world and the community of LGBT means. So I think that while you can have LGBT mentors who were heterosexual, I, as a heterosexual man, have LGBT mentors who have helped me understand that world and helped me understand some of the struggles and some of the challenges that are faced by members of the LGBT community. But Cassandra, for yourself there, obviously you'll not be going as far back as the 90s because you were a child, much like myself. But and maybe you will be going back to the 90s.
We can all read history books, Keelan. You know,
only those of us who can read, Barry. Like, you know, Mute, for example. But anyway, Cassandra, who was your LGBT mentors?
Well, kind of like Barry, I don't have a specific one, you know. It's definitely mostly been people in my personal life that I watched long before me coming out and, you know, standing up and being true to themselves and having that strength and watching them go through that, you know, and or even, you know, people you didn't know were part of the LGBT community, like friends and things, and hearing their stories today is just, you know, it's everything, you know. And I think it's definitely mostly been people in my personal life, but like Barry said, there has been people like, you know, people kind of my age and stuff that are in movies or, you know, things that we watch every day on Netflix and whatever, coming out and standing up and, you know, telling the world who they are. And to me, anybody who finds the strength to do that is incredible, you know, because it's a struggle, as we talked about already. It's hard, you know. Yeah. There's no taking away from that. So yeah.
Look, I think that's That's all fair enough. And I think it's natural that there are people in your personal life that, you know, have done that. Certainly my LGBT mentors that I referenced there that have helped me understand it, were not necessarily pop culture icons, but were individuals in my personal life. And I know that I've, you know, spent a long time struggling to understand why they were wary of telling me that they were LGBT. I really struggled with that because for me it was such a non-thing, and yet for these guys, they've been working up to it for years and years. Some of them never told me, and it just sort of came about naturally, where, you know, it just kind of it was never discussed, but, you know, it was just there. And I suppose, again, it was one of these things where I really struggled to understand that challenge the LGBT people face in terms of coming out, because for me it was so outside my periphery. But then we look at the Black Lives Matter movement, and, you know, it's so outside so many people's periphery how someone being discriminated against because of the color of their skin, and yet it's happened so many times and so horribly throughout history. And, you know, I think it's one of these things where you know, the phrase whitewash history has been used so many times, but I think there's a little bit of straightwashing that goes on in the minds of heterosexual people as well. So I think we need to take a real look at what is it actually like to live as an LGBT person or as a member of the LGBT. You know? So, look, maybe I'm wrong, and certainly Barry mentioned something there. I don't have all the language. I certainly don't have all the language, but I'm willing to learn and be taught about it. Okay, one more question, one final question, and we'll go to Cassandra first. Who was the first LGBT person you knew? I'll answer this as well. Who was the first LGBT person you knew?
My God, I can't even. It was obviously somebody in my personal life. But kind of like you, Kaelan, it wasn't really part of. See, it was kind of later on in my life when I you know, realized all this was happening, and so it kind of wasn't part of my world really. Now I knew, like, you know, and I was well aware, but it wasn't really part of my everyday life, and anyone, I suppose, who was part of that community didn't talk about it back then in school, and that it was still very much not talked about. So definitely was somebody in my personal life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Barry, who was the first LGBT person you would have known?
Yeah, like that, I don't know. Like, my God, like, to say statistically between 4 and 10% of the population, so I probably knew a hell of a lot of them before I ever realized what it was, and before maybe a lot of them realized who they were as well. But no, I suppose when I first came out to myself was to a very close friend and her mother, and I don't want to say their name just because I don't know what the family situation is. So, but that's, yeah, to actually have somebody for the first time in my life, and I was like 16 or 17 whenever I finally came out to myself, and to finally have that person that I could sit and have a conversation with, that understood exactly what was going on. Not exactly, but could totally get what it was. That we could both sit and talk about it. You know, it was probably one of the most amazing things that ever happened to me. To be able to sit in that person's home. We sat and watched the Ellen DeGeneres coming out party. We watched Queer as Folk. We watched all of these things that were sort of pop culture that I wouldn't have been comfortable, and not through any fault of my family, but I personally wouldn't have been comfortable doing it at home, watching these things at home. So she knows who she is, so she is watching. She knows who she is, and she knows how much I love her and her mum for letting me have that space as a teenager, because it is, again, it's it's impossible. I can't stress it, and I always come back to it. Like, I'm 40. I'm older than you guys, and I've only just started to understand who I am myself now, and that's a very important thing as well. Like when I said earlier to the young people, ask for help, love yourself, all of that. That's really, really important, because I ran away from who I was for years. And it was only by chance ending up in this role a couple of years ago that I started to realize, hang on, I don't have all the answers, but I have a very good understanding of it, because I've gone through what all them young people are going through. I went off in a different direction there completely. Is my mic on? Who knows?
Oh, it is.
I don't know who the first gay person, LGBT person I met was. But that's a lovely wee story for you. And you can mull over that over your coffee later on. Like, go, Barry talks an awful amount.
Well, he does, and we hear around 50% of it, to be fair, because the other half he mutes. No, like, that is so important, is the fact that, you know, I think for anyone watching who isn't out and is considering coming out to people, like for you, Barry, you came out to those people, and that became your circle where you could be out, you could be you, you know, and it gave you the courage and the platform then to later go on and come out to your family. Am I right? Am I right in interpreting that's what you just said?
Yeah, no, like it would have been like I came out to brothers and sisters before my parents, but it's just the people that sort of, you build your wee network, you build the support network that you need as an LGBT, and it's not taken away, or it's not saying that you love another person over another person, and that's why you're telling these people. It's literally safe zones, and some of the hardest people you'll ever come out to is family, because if your family don't accept what you're telling them, that's a massive thing. Now, I'm not saying things have changed massively even in the last 20 years, and a lot of families are a lot more accepting. But that's why, and just when we're talking about this here, I have actually had recently a query from a parent who their child came out to the other parent and not to them, and they feel hurt because the child has done that, and that's not an indication of the child's love of one parent over another. It's most likely an indication of the child's fear around losing that love of a parent by not being in the position to tell them. And that's all I can say. So if a child hasn't come out to you and you do know, or you've heard whispers, it's not due to lack of respect or love. It's because of that respect and love that they are afraid to come out. So give them time and give them the support, and they will find that path themselves. But don't be afraid of that your child doesn't love you because they haven't come to you directly yet. It's just an extremely difficult path, and to be honest, the parents is possibly the hardest people you'll ever have to come out to, because they are who you turn to. They are who you turn to for that love and support. And to risk losing it is just, that's why kids struggle so much with it. So give them time. I need a Valium.
Look, I think we are going to leave it there. I could stay here and talk about this all night long, and I think it's incredibly, incredibly powerful, but I think we've given people quite a lot to think about there. Guys, thank you so much for all of those. I know we've got so much more to cover next week as well, and like there's so many questions I want to sort of go through as well with you. But look, there's so many different pieces we've just covered, but I'm just going to go back to where we started and say to the people of Cavan and Monaghan, to people are, you know, everyone who goes past council offices, ETB buildings, all of these places, and you see a pride flag. That's a flag that we can all be extremely proud to see flying. That is a flag that we should be very, very happy. And hey, it's a bloody nice flag. Barry has decided to share all of the pride flags, and there we have it in Cavan this afternoon. The pride flag, which was raised above the courthouse at 4 o'clock, and that is Monaghan last week. Barry, is it?
That's Carrickmacross this morning.
Sorry, that's Carrickmacross this morning. Okay, there, yeah.
bonus last weekend. Museum in Monaghan. That's the primary care staff in Monaghan showing pride. And that is the flag at Monaghan County Council. So it's spreading out, and there are more flags going up. Not every facility can fly the flag outside. So some of them are doing it virtually. Monaghan Institute has shared it this afternoon on their Facebook page, Monaghan Institute of Further Education. The likes of the HSE primary carers in Cavan will have it inside the building because they don't have flagpoles outside. But it is there, and it's just great to have that visibility that people out there can see it. So I'll let you have the screen back. Sorry, Kieran.
You're absolutely fine. It's nice to be going to bed tonight in a county that is flying under the pride flag. So I think that's something we can all be very, very happy to see happen. Okay, guys, we're going to leave it there. Con is back on Wednesday with questions from parents, and Melissa is back on Friday with Friday Live, and that's a special episode brought by Monaghan, Corleone and Og on disability. So we will see you then. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.